thank you very much for coming here. Not the greatest of circumstances to see you. What we'll do is I'll make a brief statement, and then I'm going to also turn it to Chay, who's our acting managing editor, and she will also talk about operations. We're not closing down, so I guess first of all is that I'm going to say right up top that the speed at which this has happened and the kinds of attacks that media in general has gone through shows a very political nature of this decision, and we will be challenging this in court, right? So the first is really what's the decision say? This case began with a show cause in August, and then within about 5 months, we had a decision with steps that were missing in the process. The decision said that the SEC voided something called PDRs, Philippine Depository Receipts. These are legal by the Constitution, and we have lots of definitions for it. But the easiest definition is to think about it like this. Somebody who puts money on a PDR is like the person in a horse race, right? And you put your money on a horse. You bet on the horse. That doesn't mean you can tell the horse what to eat, or you can tell the horse who the jockey of the horse is going to be, or even anything else, because you don't have anything except you're betting on the horse. So a PDR is a bet on a horse. That's probably not a great way of saying it, but essentially what happens is if the horse wins, great, you get something. If it doesn't win, you get nothing. And because you're betting on the horse, you can't tell the horse, you can't tell the owner of the horse how to take care of the horse or how to run the race. That's first on PDRs. We have a lot more legalistic ways of defining it, but we have to simplify what it is. So what the SEC decision did is it voided the PDR of Omidyar Network. If you know Omidyar Network, it is a philanthropic, for-profit and not-for-profit. Omidyar Network is by the founder of eBay, Pierre Omidyar. And they originally backed Rappler, supported Rappler, because they believed that digital technology is global and that we were doing something different, unique, and innovative in the Philippines. These decisions will have global impact because we know digital media is global by nature. We submitted the PDRs, and they were accepted by the SEC in 2015. Now, these PDRs are not acceptable. So I'll leave it with that first, political in nature. We will fight this, and then I'll turn over to Chay to let you know how this affects our operations.
Actually, no effect on operations. A while ago, earlier today, we had a General Assembly with reporters and all employees of Rappler, and we said that this is going to be business as usual. No changes. The marching orders for reporters is still to continue pursuing and writing stories and reporting as aggressively as they are want to do, as you are, as media also is want to do. And we will continue to hold power accountable, and we will continue to tell the truth no matter what. The harassment, this is not the first time. This has been a continuing wave of harassment since last year. And we've been anticipating this decision by the SEC, and finally it's come. So now it's out there in the open. We know how to deal with it. As Maria mentioned a while ago, we will be going through, there's supposed to be a legal process. Assuming that there is rule of law in this country, we will go through the process. We will go to the proper courts, the proper legal fora, to present our case, to file the necessary motions and what have you. And if warranted, we will even go to the Supreme Court, because this is clearly a constitutional case. This is media, this is a press freedom case, because as Maria said, the decision was just so quick, five months. And just another note on the PDRs, because people are probably asking, okay, if the PDRs of Omidyar are canceled, will that affect the finances of Rappler? Not really, because it's a very, very small percentage of, Maria, you know the numbers better.
Yeah.
It's a very, very small percentage. Omidyar's PDRs are very, very small percentage of the entire amount of total PDRs that went into Rappler.
So the last part of that is PDR means that the company itself, Rappler Holdings, will hold unissued shares. So we won't issue the shares for those PDRs. Chay mentioned a small amount. It's Omidyar Network's amount of PDR in Rappler's 5.5%. Right? I guess, what are the two cases? What's the impact of this on the Philippines and on businesses that are invested in the Philippines? I think the first impact is that the battle is on two fronts. You have the corporate battle, because you have companies that have invested in the Philippines. Omidyar Network is a company that believed in the Philippines. That's one PDR. Our other PDR is North Base Media. North Base Media is headed by the former COO of Reuters, the former head of Wall Street Journal, and the former head of the Washington Post. They are journalists who understand journalism globally. So they own, of PDRs, 9.2%. Rappler, the majority, the people who have the majority and who dictate the course of Rappler are the journalists. That's us. So I guess, so the first is corporate issue and press freedom issue. Finally, I'll leave you with this before we can take questions, before we take your questions. The SEC did not follow the rules of procedure. They didn't go through due process. The M-Bank essentially issued an order to shut us down without giving us an opportunity to respond to what the special panel found. Right? So we didn't get that chance. It wasn't a normal process. And what we will do is prepare to fight. Our lawyers are preparing our next step. But as Chay said, business as usual. We're there, we're with you. I wish I was on your side, not on this side. And we feel like we are not going to, I guess this is the last part of the kind of harassment that journalists have had in the last year or so. In Rappler, it began a year and a half ago. We stand tall, right? We stand firm. It's good. This is a moment that we will say, you know, we stand for press freedom. I'll take your questions. We'll take your questions. Should I give you the mic? Yeah, sure. Please.
Okay, so categorically, Rappler is not foreign-owned, at least 60% or less. How much are the shares of foreign entities in Rappler?
I can give you a link. In fact, maybe social media can already post the link, right? In terms of international groups, now, why did Rappler go outside, right? You have to understand that we are fiercely independent. Chay is one of the founders of Newsbreak. I started Probe when I was in my 20s with Cheche Lazaro and Luchi Cruz Valdez. And what we felt, given the political environment, that we didn't want to be influenced by any businesses in the Philippines. We felt that going to get PDRs, which don't give any ownership or any control, would give us the ultimate independence. So 9.2% for North Base Media, that's unissued shares, and 5.5% for Omidyar Network. In terms of foreign influence, you know, I think one senator questioned my citizenship. I will tell you, you know, many of you know that I am both a Filipino citizen and an American citizen. I don't mind saying that. It has been part of who I am, and I will not be intimidated into backing off on anything. And I think the last part of that is that, as my old boss, Gabby Lopez, will probably tell you, I am extremely stubborn. When we fight for an issue, when we fight for what is right, we will stand the line. And if I found anyone more stubborn than me, that's probably the Newsbreak girls. Chay is worse. We draw the lines. So in terms of control, any type of control other than the journalist, good luck. And then in terms of foreign control, good God, why, right?
I'll just add to that, no, because as Maria mentioned a while ago, a PDR is not equivalent to ownership. It's really a financial instrument. Companies will need investments and capital to fuel operations. Media is very expensive, especially for television. You know this. And same with us. We also need capital because when we started, it was really just us. There are no big business investors in Rappler. So because we needed capital, we thought of doing PDRs because ABS-CBN has that, GMA7 has that, PLDT has that. So it's nothing new. It's a template already that we really followed. So there's no violation there. And because these are PDRs, what we're essentially doing is they're able to put in money, and then if we become profitable, then they collect from the investment. But the day-to-day operations, they have no say. They can't tell us, you're not supposed to run this story or you should run this story. No interference at all in editorial. So that's the difference. If you're a shareholder, investor, that's where you have a say. You're part of the board, and then you vote on certain issues. That could influence day-to-day operations in editorial, but not so with PDRs.
But again, I'll go back and I'll challenge. You can talk to any of our directors. What is built into Rappler's shares is that all economic and editorial decisions are ours. I mean, I've already done other network. I mean, we've worked for other people. The reason why we set up Rappler is precisely for our independence. Thank you for your question.
Yes.
Question, you've mentioned since last year that you're actually experiencing harassment. Who could be the reason, you think, the reason behind everything?
So it's no secret we came out with data-driven series on propaganda and the weaponization of the internet. What we see is the information ecosystem of the Philippines has drastically changed. That pro-Duterte bloggers, what was a distribution network that helped then Mayor Duterte win the campaign and become president, in July of 2016 was weaponized. And strangely enough, it wasn't weaponized until after he won. Right about, coincidentally, the same time that President Duterte did a 1 month, if you guys remember the 1 month boycott of traditional media, was when the social media machine kicked in. And what we've seen is in social media, anyone who asks a critical question, particularly anyone who questions extrajudicial killings, real people, journalists, anyone who's mildly critical gets crippled, bashed. And that's helped create a chilling effect. And that happened beginning August of 2016, and we began to see it lift slightly a year later in August 2017. I can send you links to these stories. And this is something that we've brought up to Facebook itself, because Facebook is the platform where you've seen massive echo chambers pull on each side, right? And what we want is to be able to get to the facts. What are the facts of the matter? In terms of the rest of your question, this ecosystem was used to cripple journalists. And this is a normal attack. So in October of 2016, after we came out with the weaponization series, I received an average of 90 hate messages per hour. If you're a female reporter, you probably get a lot more. Our Malacanang reporter, Pia Ranada, medyo sanay na rin siya dyan, di ba? It's, what you do is you go through it and you get a tough skin. You figure out, what we did is we gathered the data. And then we realized that that is meant to intimidate you into silence. So kudos to the Philippine press. They haven't allowed that to happen. And then beyond that, outside of social media, you've also seen government's own moves, the frequent attacks, and ABS-CBN on its franchise, the Inquirer, it started with the kill list and then the attacks on its owners, and the ultimate last July, the Inquirer being sold. And we came under fire, much more in the line of fire in July at the second State of the Nation address of President Duterte. When he named us, a few days later, we got the first show cause, the show cause order from this SEC. So it's a whole ecosystem. It's meant to help to convince us to follow a common narrative. But what we really believe is a strong democracy is about us doing our jobs. Journalists actually try to point out what things can be done better. You don't do reports to be critical. You do reports to help make it better. And a government that does not see that will perpetually make mistakes. Because if you can't vet it, then you can't come up with the best solution.
What's the instruction for reporters? Like, for example, if you go to an event, especially if it's a government event, and then they tell your reporters that you're not allowed to cover, what are they supposed to do?
You mean after the decision?
Yes.
After this decision? As I said earlier, there's a legal process. So the order of the SEC is not immediately executory. So we'll be filing a motion for reconsideration, which means status quo. Reporters still can cover government, and there's the accreditation should be there until the license is revoked finally. Finality.
How long do you expect the legal process to take?
You know, we expected this process with the SEC to last about a year. And then I guess the other part that I didn't mention is there have been other companies where the SEC found something wrong with their papers. And normally what happens is the SEC gives that company a year to fix it, and then it's business as usual. This kind of draconian punishment is the first time. It certainly shows the kind of political nature that makes it a press freedom issue. In terms of going to the Supreme Court, in my last job, we have a case, GMA and ABS, we have a case that has headed to the Supreme Court and it's been more than a decade, right? So it depends again, the wheels of justice move slowly in our country and we want it to move faster. But apparently, in special interest cases, they can move really fast. So we're prepared, bring it. We will continue to fight it and we will continue to push the government to respect and to maintain the rule of law.
So you're going to bring the case to the Supreme Court, right? With the way how the Supreme Court decides right now, the political composition of its appointees, how optimistic are you that you're going to win the case?
Again, if this is a rule of law, we would like to believe that the justices will follow the Constitution. And what does the Constitution say? The Constitution gives the media protection because we are a democracy. So if the justices recognize the value, the role of media in a democracy, hopefully they will respect the freedom of the press, the freedom of the media to do its job. We don't want to think that because it's a Duterte Supreme Court, then they will automatically decide against us because the case has been filed by the SEC, which, by the way, happens to be under the office of the president.
Any others? Okay. I guess I just want to, ask you for your support, ask you for your help to help our government, to help the SEC, to help the next part. By the way, the Supreme Court it's still many, many steps along the way, right? That's not the next court of recourse. There are many legal remedies that are still there for us. But I think the reason why this is a danger signal is the intent is there. It's the first time that this kind of action has been taken against an independent media group. It begins, it will have global repercussions. And it will be both a corporate issue because it's a change of rules and a press freedom issue. I think a true democratic government would want the checks and balances of a free press, and that's what we have always strived to do. We're here, we're on social media. Please ask us any questions. We want to make sure that our country continues doing well. That's why we do our jobs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Reuters? Okay.
Yes, about the financial standing of the company. How is it? How's the operations in the past maybe 3 years? So you can give us a background on that.
Sure. Again, I can give you the link, right? We started in 2012, the website itself, but we began as a company mid-2011. It took 6 months we tried to figure out workflow processes. So some of the funny things is, one of our reporters taking our camera and interviewing Pacquiao, but it turned out that he was shooting his shoe instead. So this was the part before we began the website. So we were trying to experiment. In our first 2012 to 2012, 2013, 2014, growth. Incredible growth, 2014, incredible growth year on year in terms of both reach and revenue. We hit positive EBITDA, which is essentially break even in 2016. 2017 is a difficult year for every media group because we were hit on both sides by the tech giants, right? So we know that we're not alone in this. Several media organizations have let go of journalists or are in the process of themselves shutting down, right? Why? Our business model as news entities, as media groups, like in the rest of the world, is threatened by Facebook and Google, who are taking the lion's share of digital revenues. At the same time, Facebook is also in the Philippines being used to cripple the credibility of journalists by allowing these propaganda networks to continue. So I think we have a battle on two fronts. And if you look at, I think, what we've tried to do in the last year, particularly last year for Rappler, we've tried to draw the line and say we will stand against impunity in governance the same way we will stand against impunity in Facebook, right? And I think that's a battle that we all share. So positive EBITDA 2016, 2017 was a difficult year. We sailed through it better than others, not as good as others. And we hope 2018, you'll see more innovative. Again, we'll see, We'll see where things go. But we're fighting battles even as we're trying to redefine what our industry will look like. Because the minute you're online, you're not just competing in the Philippines, you're competing globally. And that's an exciting challenge. That's the reason why the rest of the world is also interested in the business of journalism, of media in the Philippines. Okay, you gotta stop me from talking now. Chay, you wanna say anything else?
No, actually, Maria mentioned the global issue, because if you look at the technology, really allows us to go global. And Rappler, being an online news site, has really tried to innovate. We don't have a television station, no radio, no newspaper associated with us. It's just purely online. And I think that was also the reason why Omidyar was interested in Rappler, because they were learning from us in the same way that we are learning from them, given their exposure globally. So it's just unfortunate that instead of government supporting media that is trying to grow and project itself globally, it's trying to close us down. And as we said, we will try to resist that.
I think the other thing you need to look at also is how we have different conflicting government initiatives. One is to actually liberalize the economy in the telco, for example, right? To bring in Chinese investors in also industries that have ownership restrictions, and how the government itself has said that it wants to liberalize media as well. So given these, it's very easy to just conclude that this is a harassment case. It is political in nature. And, you know, I appeal to the government to realize that we're here to try to help make our country stronger, to help make the right decisions. And then I think the last point is, you know, thank you for this very clear action. We've received extremely strong support. We've been offered a newspaper to put Rappler on a newspaper, but thank you, we really like online. But I think that, you know, I have faith. We have faith. Thank you.